I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, and welcome to this weekly Precious Metal Weekend Review with Andy SCHECTMAN. You can find his work at milesfranklin.com. Let's give him a big warm welcome. Andy, welcome back to the show.
JC, sorry I missed you last week. Good to be here. Good to see you, and hope you're doing well, my friend.
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm excited to have you as well. Let's start by giving a little bit of an update to the audience, Andy. You and I have been, our phones and our emails have been going crazy here in the last week or so with our audience members looking to buy physical silver. Now, in our last episode, there was a couple of people, 2 or 3 actually, who had mentioned in my live show that for some reason they had tried the booking form 2 or 3 times and had not yet had a response. And so in my live show, I said, please send me that email once more, and I'll make sure that Andy gets them. So let's speak to that. The volume, what's happening on your side, and perhaps where this spam issue might be causing some issues between either on your end or on the client's end as well.
Yeah, it's weird. And I don't know what the keywords are or what have you, but one out of every 10 or 15 leads that I get from your system go to my spam. And I have to mark it not as spam, and then it goes into my inbox. I forward a lot of these to my brokers because, quite frankly, I can't do it all myself. There will be some of your listeners who received emails from me as late as 2:30 in the morning Eastern last night. I was talking to you maybe around midnight. You sent me a text. It's been it's wonderful. It's a blessing. Don't get me wrong. It's taxing and overwhelming for one person. I forward these to brokers, and one in particular that you're speaking about. He said to me, Andy, this is the guy that runs my Canadian division, and he's the one who's keeping record of all the Canadian people who have sent us emails because we're opening up this new Canadian division. And he said we've only gotten one email from her and replied to me and you and her. Some of these are going to spam. I check my spam 10 times a day, every day, and I find the things that need to go back in the inbox. But my question is, I wonder if when they are sent back out, there's something triggering it to go into that spam box, the recipients. Look, when you get email leads from your site, my brokers are seriously eager to work with them, and so am I. And so we're always going to reply promptly. I guess as a rule of thumb, I would simply say that if you don't get a reply within 24 hours, try again. Even copy you, JC, and say, hey, I haven't heard yet. I'm happy to always send it out post haste in that respect, but I can promise you that it is my intention to clear my inbox every night. Now, last night, just so people understand, I did something with the Economic Ninja and with Liberty and Finance. I had almost 800 emails, literally almost 800 emails. So I was replying till 2:33 in the morning last night, and got in big trouble from my wife for that one because I woke her up when I can. She gets up to make breakfast for my kids at 6 in the morning before school. Seriously, she's hardly speaking to me today. But anyways, the point of it is that I try really hard to get back to all of these people, and I always will, JC. And so we're very appreciative and grateful for the interest, and I can promise you that it is our #1 priority to get back in an expedient manner.
Well, that's awesome. And I know too, I see your replies and all the time you guys spent on it. So, and like 99% of people, when I send out these servers, are absolutely happy with your service. So yes, there is some issues sometimes, guys, and we do our best. And please, like Andy says, if there is an issue, just contact me directly, and we'll make sure that that order goes through okay. So let me ask you though, Andy, what's the common denominator? I know your phone's off the hook, the email service is off the hook here. What's happening right now? What are the audience members telling you? Why have they decided now? Are they telling you, hey, I've been watching this for a long time, but suddenly, yes. Okay, explain that to the audience here.
I'll explain it on a more broad scale. Okay. I'm getting phone calls from people who have a lot of money and who have never bought metals before. And these are people who are equity bulls. And you have to understand that we never got phone calls like this ever in 30 years where people say, hey, I pulled everything out of the stock market. I'd like to spend $3 million. You get 1 or 2 of those a year. We're getting those every week, several. last night, a $2.5 million order was 100,000 ounces of silver. And I'm starting to wonder where the silver is going to come from. It's getting harder and harder to come by. And you've heard me say that a lot. And, sometimes this industry makes me feel like the little boy who cries wolf. But it's the things that I have seen are happening, and they're happening not maybe in a linear progression fashion, but they're happening. And we're beginning to see a broader interest in precious metals. People who have thought about it, people who are afraid they can't, look, I don't care how bullish you are on stocks. You have to take a look back and say, take a step back and look at it and say, something just doesn't feel right here, where you have equity markets at all-time highs in this economy, with inflation roaring, with unemployment, certainly not anywhere near the levels that the Fed would like before they stop their tapering. As a side note to that, I find it interesting. I don't believe any of the information coming out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And the fact that they said inflation was slowing, and maybe it is transitory, is just an excuse for them to continue buying mortgage-backed securities and U.S. Treasuries. Because if they said inflation is continuing to roar like we all know that it is, then they would have had to, as they said, slow down and in fact taper and slow down their asset purchases. They can never do that. But I think people are sensing that. People are getting that that something's not right, that the information we're being fed is not right, that the economy is being goosed and it's not right, that the markets aren't right. And so you're seeing a lot of people who are for the very first time looking for an alternative. The gentleman who bought the $2.5 million worth of silver also bought $2.5 million worth of gold. And I asked him, this is a very small portion of his assets. And I said, let me ask you a question. I said, if I dropped a $20 million bill in your pocket, what would you do with it? Would you buy stocks, bonds, real estate, all at all-time highs against the lowest interest rates ever, maybe in human history? Where would you put your money? Would you put it in a bank where only $250,000 is FDIC insured, and FDIC insurance is a scam, and where the money printing is really eviscerating the value of it? I said, would you put it in a money market where it's gated? Where would you put it? And his answer to me was, I'd put it in gold and silver. Now, I'm not saying that to be self-serving. I'm just simply saying, if you really are honest with yourself and take a broad look at the marketplace, where the hell do you put your money? Where you can feel safe about it, and where you can find a modicum of value. And I think people are waking up to that. It's, I think it's just kind of a, you said something to me when I asked you to go to the gym every day, and you said, yes, you do. You made a comment about a charge in the air, or a vibration in the air, or something. I don't remember exactly what you said, but I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I look at what's going on right now. There's something, a buzz, a charge, a feeling, even though you can't see it, it's hiding in the shadows. And I think people are getting that. And it's on multiple levels, whether it be politically, morally, socially, economically. I just think people are waking up to it, JC. And it goes all the way down to all the people watching you who all think so highly of you. I think a lot of them are finally saying, and a common thread is, yeah, I've been watching for a long time. I've been meaning to do it, but now I'm going to. And we're very appreciative, and we're happy to educate and hold people's hand through this process, which really isn't a difficult process. It's quite easy compared to most investments or most asset purchases. But anyways, yeah, that's the common thread, JC. It's that there's a charge in the air. And I think people realize that, your eyes are lying to you. And sometimes you need to trust your gut, because the big money is doing all they can to keep us from seeing the truth. And they are doing that by goosing interest rates, or holding them down, goosing the equity markets, holding down the precious metals market. And I'd like to talk about that for a minute. I know this is a little bit not really what you asked for, but I talked a lot on your show about this group called The Others, right? And I've talked a lot about, the last time we talked, how on August 9th, when the price got smashed, there was a tremendous amount of short covering by the commercial banks.
Mm-hmm.
Over $4 billion worth of gold and 66 million ounces worth of silver. But I owe this to Ted Butler, and I'd like to just read something to your audience so that they understand what I'm getting at here. What the biggest money in the world is misdirecting the public, okay? So this is talking about August 9th and the period starting on this night. When the price got clubbed, I talked about how it got pushed in the middle of the night. It drove it down over the ledge, over the 200-day moving average, which pushed with momentum the price down the hill. And as it kept going down the hill, it triggered stops along the way. All of the hedge funds that were long but are locked into an algorithmic program that trades the hedge fund, and you violate these averages or these resistance levels, and bang, it sells, and you're out. And this happened in the middle of the night, so by the time the traders got into their desks in Wall Street early in the morning on the 9th, they were already traded out of their positions, which further depressed the price. So gold fell by $100, right? And silver fell all the way down to 22. So when that happened, we saw a tremendous number of commercial banks covering. But remember, I talk about a lot this group called the others, and these others are managed money people. They're not commercials. They're sovereign wealth funds and family offices. They're the biggest private money in the world. And I've been talking about for the last 18 months how they've been draining COMEX of the metal, literally draining it. Check this out. Data, and this is from Ted Butler. I want to give Ted a shout out because he does great work on the COMEX, and I read him a lot. And this is really interesting. Data over the past 4 reporting weeks indicate that a large non-commercial trader has amassed as many as 40,000 COMEX gold contracts, the equivalent of 4 million ounces of gold. In addition to the concentrated long position being the highest amongst the highest on record, even more interesting is that the sharp increase began during the reporting week corresponding to the recent deliberate smashdown in gold and silver prices into August 9th. What this indicates is that the large non-commercial trader, most likely included in the other large trader reporting category, bought most aggressively into that price smash, apparently by design. Now here's where it gets interesting. And I want to put this in context in a minute with the Palantir discussion we had a few weeks ago, okay? For the record, nearly 40,000 COMEX gold futures has a total notional dollar value of $7.2 billion at $1,800 per ounce. And each dollar move higher or lower equates to $4 million to the holder. Minimum initial margin requirement would run $8,250 per contract, worth $330 million. So whoever this dude is has to post $330 million in margin to buy $4 billion worth of gold. And so, and what he's talking about, Ted, it says in regards to Palantir and the media's portraying of this. So when we talk about a feeling people have, because they're not getting the good information, you know, that Palantir thing was blasted everywhere, all over CNBC and Bloomberg, and everyone's talking about Palantir buying 50 million in gold, right? So what he says is, he says, what bothers me is when the public data doesn't get put into proper perspective. Case in point is the recent commentary about the $50 million gold position taken by the high-tech data company Palantir. I understand that Palantir's gold purchase was for physical metal, not futures. However, COMEX futures positioning is the main price driver for better or worse. The fact is that the 38,000 COMEX contracts recently purchased by this trader, 3.8 million ounces, is more than 130 times larger than the 28,500 ounces purchased by Palantir. You're talking the biggest money in the world, JC, is using these pullbacks, using misdirection to acquire as much gold as you see central banks purchasing. And the biggest money in the world is misdirecting the public. So I guess people have to take a step back and look at what's happening right now. And I'm telling you, when you see things like this, never happened before. You never see people. And what's different about these others is they're standing for delivery. So these are December contracts that they purchased. So in December, they're going to stand for delivery. And when that happens, it's one of these deals where you start to see just out of supply and demand at that level, prices must rise because most of this shorting is done in the naked fashion, meaning no one's got $4 billion worth of gold that they're going to dump onto the market in the middle of the night. No, they're using December futures contracts. So this group says, okay, fine, we'll buy them at $100 subsidy. And by the way, we're going to stand for delivery. So you better go out and find it. It's basically what's happening. Mm-hmm. It's this type of an atmosphere all the way from the top on up. If you take a look at it, you can see they're frightened. They're repositioning. They sense something coming. Why does Wells Fargo and Chase Bank close their lines of credit? Why are we seeing $1 trillion a night in the reverse repo market? Something's coming. And like the little boy who cries wolf, constantly crying wolf, that's me. But I will say it again, the wolf comes at the end of the story. And we buy gold and silver not to get rich. We buy it because it's wealth. And no one knows that better than Cliff. And Cliff and I have had a couple little chats on email about this. He gets it. And I think that people need to start realizing that gold and silver right now, really in terms of value, in terms of utility, in terms of mitigating your exposure to the system, are what the biggest money in the world are using as tools to quietly exit stage left.
Right. Well, and talking about what's coming, perhaps the pitchforks are coming. I don't know if you saw this article from Zero Hedge, but of course, these are the angry, enraged, Evergrande investors who are holding some of these people hostage here.
They've locked them in. They can't get out. They've locked them in the building. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. And Cliff was saying today too, okay, today's pitchforks, do we get the flamethrowers the next day? Like, where's this going? And when you talked about this herd and this energy, like it's bubbling up. And I think people are reacting to it in different ways. But I think people who are looking at the bigger picture and sensing that perhaps their hard-earned money, as you said, has no place to go.
Well, like I said to this gentleman,
they're taking these decisions. Go ahead.
This gentleman who made this order sold his company for an extraordinary amount of money. And I said to him, you know what? I said, Bill, it's a whole hell of a lot harder to keep your money these days than it is to make it. He says, ain't that the truth? Mm-hmm. And, I don't say that. I just think it's a lot harder to keep your money than it is to have made it. And because where do you put it anymore? Where you can feel safe about it, where you don't keep, where you're not staring at the ceiling in the middle of the night wondering, is the risk worth it? Now, a lot of people will say, well, crap, look at what gold and silver are, the volatility. Well, that's exactly right. It is very volatile. But the biggest money in the world is repositioning into it, and they are using that volatility to provide cover. And that's the most important thing, because if you look at the equity markets, where else is there to go? Go straight higher based upon more and more and more inflation? What does that ultimately do to the dollar? What does it do to interest rates? Is the Fed going to be buying the back end of the bond market forever? What happens if now that Russia has a joint military cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia? What if they announce we're going to now take 5 currencies for oil, including yuan, ruble, yen, and euro? What happens to the value of the dollar? What happens to interest rates? Can the Fed continue to buy the back end of the bond market when the rest of the world is dumping? So, look,
when you say the rest of the world is dumping, oh, sorry, there's a little bit of an echo. I didn't mean to speak over you. When you say the rest of the world is dumping, I produced this a series there a week and a half ago called The Death of the Petrodollar. And in the episode with Rob Kirby, saying, JC, because everybody was asking, should I maybe, change my fiat dollar for something else? And he said, wait a second. If you're asking that question at this late stage in the game, you have to realize that everybody else in the world has already done that. You're playing musical chairs, and all of these people got a tip from the DJ that the music was about to end. They're already sitting on their chairs, and you're the only one holding these paper dollars. So you really have to think of where we are in the stage of this game here. So what you just mentioned about deliveries, standing for deliveries in December, also ties in, and I'm going to bring some woo into the conversation here, to 2 data points. The first one is Cliff High's data point of the $600 silver before Christmas. And of course, if big money is calling their bluff, at some point here, something has to give. Do we see $600, $200? I don't know what it is, but something needs to happen here very soon, because again, you're saying it from your side. Where's this supply going to come from if this really happens here the way it's going right now?
And I don't know if they're calling their bluff or it's the same group, because what Ted was, maybe I misread what Ted is saying, but when he says that it was done by design, so you have a non-commercial trader buying $4 billion worth of gold as the price gets hammered by $100. So my question has always been, who are these others? Are these others, I mean, are they best friends with the central bankers? I mean, if you're a central banker, do you call your buddy and say, just get ready to buy a whole bunch tomorrow morning? I mean, who knows? Does it happen?
Right.
I'm sure it probably does. Are these people in the know? Is it the same group? Like in 1933, when gold was confiscated, JC, most of the elite, months beforehand, they shipped their gold by steamship across the Atlantic Ocean to the banks of Europe, quietly, privately, so that they didn't have to turn in their gold when the rest of the peasants did. You know, just like the rest of us during the Obamacare, we had, you know, we have a specific insurance plans that we have to abide by, but you know, the Congress doesn't need to. I mean, the elite are always knowing what's going on. The elite are ahead of the game. And I would simply say to you, when you see the amount of de-dollarization and accumulation by these big private entities, are they tuned in? Are they the same people making the rules, just, you know, wearing a different shirt? So I don't know. This is very uncanny. But what I can tell you is that in all the 31 years I've done this, I have never, ever seen anything like this on COMEX, where you have massive deliveries happening, and it continues. And one trader amassing 40,000 COMEX contracts is insane. A $330 million margin requirement is insane. Who's got that kind of dough? I don't know. You tell me. So, anyways, that's just food for thought. But when we talk about the feeling and then seeing the volatility, take a step back, take a deep breath, and say to yourself, the biggest money in the world would not be doing what they're doing if it weren't for real. And they are using that volatility, and they are using the counterintuitive action to run cover. It's a smokescreen.
Well, okay, let me continue on that note of the woo. So there's a $600 silver sometime before Christmas. This has long time been in the data. And now I just had this conversation with Penny Kelly last night, and in her last look-see, not only is she seeing it at $600 by the end of this year, she's seeing the 2000 number mark by January and February of next year. That's how the system is degraded at that point in the three scenarios that you presented last night. So folks, go check out that video if you haven't seen it already. There's a lot in there. Now, whether or not it's $2,000 or $200 or $600, the point is, if you're still in money, in paper dollars, you're losing every day. So at what point do you make a decision to stop the bleeding? And then, like Andy says, where do you go from there? Okay, let me take a quick question here from the audience. I have a few more things, Andy, I want to bring to you. But before I lose this from the chat, little Miss Angel was asking something. Where is she? I believe she wants to know, there it is. She wants to know, Andy, if she buys from you guys on our site here, can this be delivered to Scotland?
So delivering metal to Europe, it's basically, silver is pretty much a no-no for two reasons. One, it's incredibly expensive to ship it by air, and there's a VAT tax on silver in just about every part of the EU. Gold, 24 karat gold is really not too bad at all. So unfortunately, what I say, and I have about 20 emails of all the people who have replied to me from Ireland, United Kingdom, Portugal. You're going to get an email back from me this weekend when I dig myself out. But the answer is no. Shipping silver to the United Kingdom or to Scotland is incredibly expensive, carries a VAT tax, and is really not economical. What I say to these people is we can arrange for storage here in the United States and brinks. That's not really what people want to hear, but unfortunately, that's just the way that it goes. If they wanted 24 karat gold, I could get that to them fairly easily. Interestingly enough, I've had a bunch of people ask me about getting metal to New Zealand, which you would think wouldn't be so bad because I can ship gold and silver to Australia. There's still a VAT tax into Australia on silver. I can ship it there. It's expensive, but I can't ship anything to New Zealand. For whatever reason, our insurance company won't allow it. I don't know what the reason is. I haven't dug deep enough. But Moral of the story is, other than Canada, shipping silver outside of the United States becomes very costly, and most countries will charge a VAT tax on importation of silver. US and Canada don't.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. And Colleen, I believe, is somebody who is in the process right now through our booking form to get some physical silver from you. She's asking, should I also buy gold? Let's talk about that. As people are divesting out of fiat here, what would you say is the average, without necessarily giving advice, to the ratio that people should look into their portfolios between gold and silver? What's the common theme you're seeing here?
See, this is where I think Cliff might agree with me on this, but a lot of other people won't. Big Swear, who I love dearly like a brother, won't agree with me on this. Chris Marcus, another brother, will not agree with me on this. And certainly Jimmy and Ivan from Wall Street Silver will not agree with me on this. And I respect them all and like them all as human beings and value what they have to say. But my take on it is that in 2019, the Bank of International Settlements reclassifies gold as the world's only other tier 1 reserve. And it's a riskless asset. And when you see the amount of gold acquisition by the biggest money in the world, and they're buying silver too, but the central banks, the commercial banks, sovereign wealth funds, they have been for 4+ years copiously buying gold. Mm-hmm. And I think when you ask yourself, why the hell would the Bank of International Settlements levitate gold to this level if it weren't significant in the future plans? Why? Why would they call gold tier 1 but not SDR, special drawing rights, or euro or yen or ruble or whatever? Why gold? After 80 years of it only being US dollars. And the front running for a year and a half, almost 2 years of the central banks before that announcement came up, and the continual accumulation by central banks, big and small, are continuing to buy gold. And like this trader, this other who buys 40,000 COMEX contracts, 4 million ounces of gold, that's $7.5 billion worth of gold. Okay, I'll just buy 7+ billion worth of gold. Who's got that kind of money? The biggest thing in the world is accumulating gold. What silver is to me, aside from the fact that it's probably the best investment on the planet, because it's bracketed on both sides between industrial and investment demand, and really there's nothing like that. Most assets like gold are just mostly monetary on gold, mostly industrial on copper. We've talked about this before. Silver is bracketed on either side. Industrial demand that's accentuating in green and digital applications, and a global renaissance in monetary demand where 95% of every order I've done for the past 18 months is silver. Literally. We had our biggest year ever last year, and we're already done more this year than we did last year, and it's almost all silver. I mean, there's gold too, but huge amounts of silver. So there is a renaissance in silver. So look, I think that silver at a ratio of roughly 75 to 1, when it's coming out of the ground at 7 to 1, it's 10 to 11 times undervalued. Yeah. It's the buying opportunity of a generation. However, what I would say to you when we look at that ratio is that ultimately it's a pathway for me to get more gold. When that ratio gets near 30 to 1, or even let's say it got to 7 to 1. I mean, it's not far-fetched to say it goes to 7 to 1 if that's what it's coming out of the ground at. And then you end up with, if you were to use whatever you bought today in gold at silver at 75 to 1.
I think, Andy, you just froze. Guys, I might have lost Andy. Hold on a second here. Is it me or is it just Andy? Guys,
okay,
give me 555. Oh, okay, you're back, Andy. Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I had a little glitch there. Anyways, so if people are buying silver at 75 to 1, where it takes 75 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold, what if it regresses to its natural mean of 7 to 1? Where it's actually coming out of the ground. And then it only takes 7 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. In other words, you could buy 10 times the amount of gold when you switch back, or get 10 times the amount of gold. I just think that gold is what the wealthiest people in the world accumulate. Silver has far more utility. So I wouldn't say trade all your silver to gold when that happens, but I do believe that ultimately you want to be in gold. Maybe not everything, but I do think ultimately you do not want to ignore gold or take it for granted, because the biggest money in the world for the past 5 years have been massively buying it, a lot more than they buy silver. Not to say silver doesn't have wicked demand, it does, but gold on a dollar basis is dwarfing silver in terms of central bank acquisition. And when the biggest money in the world is going that feverishly after gold and it's reclassified as tier 1, that's where you want to be. Silver is a pathway to get there. Don't get rid of all your silver, but look at it as a way to, down the road, trade it into gold and get a bunch more. The caveat is, will there be enough gold available at that point? Don't know. It's a risk, I guess.
Okay, so having said that, there's 3 main components here. Silver is wildly undervalued. It has a lot of room to grow, maybe compared to gold, maybe more room. This is the argument that many are saying. 2, we're seeing that the big money is getting into gold. They've been front running this for 5 years. The BIS has already made this a tier 1 asset. So they know at some point here, something big is going to happen to gold too. And this is why presumably all their friends are buying it at a rapid clip. And then what you're saying too is there's a strategy to maybe hedge your bets, get into silver first so that you can multiply those gains and convert it back to gold at some point. But at some point, you might not get it. Having said all that, for the investor here who's listening to the show, what would be a typical ratio for them to hedge all of those components? Is it 10, 90%? Is it 20, 80? Is it 70, 30? What would be your guess? Again, not financial advice, but
it depends a lot. Depends upon how old the people are too. You know, if you're 80 years old, you should buy more gold. I think that normally when people ask me that question, someone your age, I'd say 60, 40, 70, 30, 80, 20, somewhere in that range, because the potential you get in silver, it is the opportunity of a generation. Honest to God, I believe that. Mm-hmm. There are very few things that you can talk about that have the fundamentals that silver has. It's extraordinary. It's depleted. It's undervalued. It's needed every day and expanding harder and harder to get. And it also has monetary demand. So it's got an extraordinary story behind it. But gold is wealth and has been for 6,000 years. And not to say silver isn't. I'm just simply saying that pick a number. Just don't completely ignore gold. And I think you'll be glad that you did. And look, for thousands of years, the ratio between gold and silver was 16 to 1. Originally, the God's ratio, they call it, geologically, was 15.5 to 1. Silver is 15.5 times more abundant than gold. Keith Neumeyer tells us it's 7 to 1 right now. So the geologic ratio has been halved because it's found in nature in a form called epithermal, very close to the surface. Mm-hmm. So the big deposits are already been depleted. Plus, most of the silver that's been used in industry for the last 80 years is in landfills because it's used in such small amounts, it's not economical to recycle it. So you're looking at an asset that is depleting, but increasing in industrial applications and monetary applications. So if you realize that since the Industrial Revolution, over the last few hundred years, it's averaged about 42 to 1. And right now at 75 to 1, you are at the top part of the spectrum. You know, in last March when it hit 125 to 1, that was the greatest disparity in human history. I begged everyone to switch their gold to silver. Right now, you could trade back into gold and almost double what you started with. But it's going to get closer to its average of 40 to 1. In 2010, I did the same thing. It got to 85 to 1. It was the second or third time in human history, 85 to 1. Within 8 months, it was 37 to 1. When silver was 50 and gold was 1915, and that was just below its 150-year average. Still 5 times above what it's coming out of the ground at. So when you talk about the strategy is you buy it at 75 to 1, and when it gets just past its 150-year average, it gets to 36 or 7 to 1, bang, you switch back into gold and double what you could have otherwise bought today. That's the strategy. But the question is, do you think
you play it out?
Well, can you get it? And, you know, Big Swear says he thinks it will go the other way, where it'll actually be valued more than gold. And maybe he's right. Mm-hmm. You know, when we talk about how high can it get, if we just take the price of gold today and divide it by 7, it's about $250. That would be the geologic ratio right now.
Right.
So
just to add to that too, you mentioned Cliff High. He does also see in his data that eventually we would hit parity with gold, and if not, surpass it. So that was also in his predictive linguistic models. But what you just said about having conversations with Cliff, I'm looking at an email now, and it says don't talk about it, so I won't talk about it. But he was referring to gold and something coming up on his radar where people might be surprised here in the near future as well. So again, he was just suggesting, without me getting into the details as to why he said
I know
that.
he's a fan of both. He likes both without divulging anything he doesn't want us to talk about. He likes both, and I think it's wise to do that. It's wise to not hedge your bet on such an important outcome, or to not hedge it, to risk it to one thing. And look, you'll be fine with silver. Silver's gonna always do what we want it to do in terms of protecting against a dollar crisis or what have you. But in the end, I truly, honestly believe that you do want some gold, but not yet. Silver is the best value out there on just about any asset class. And when I say it's the buying opportunity of a generation, and it sounds kind of canned and trite, but I do mean it. I really think hard about these things. One of the things that's made me successful, JC, is being objective. I can't sell something when deep in my own mind I know it's wrong. Right. And I try to think, what is a better place? Where is there a better place to put your money right now? I'd like to read you something else real quick, which is really bothering me. And, a lot of people are talking about like what we were talking about, what's going on in the air, what we're feeling. Check this out. And I'm sure you probably already talked about this, but, with their new $3+ trillion tax proposal, it's the largest tax proposal increase in nominal dollars ever. A lot of people out there will say, well, what about cryptocurrencies? Okay, well, listen to this. Biden's new proposal would require banks to report gross inflows and outflows to the IRS, including transactions from PayPal, crypto exchanges, brokerage houses, and the like, in an effort to fight tax evasion. The Daily Mail noted, adding the IRS would know how much money is in an individual's bank account in a given year, whether the individual earned income on that account, and exactly how much was going in and out. This is the preliminary stages of a digital currency, where they're going to say, well, we've already been monitoring everything anyway. This is a direct violation of the Fourth Amendment, and it's very frightening. But when you talk about where to go, how do you get outside the matrix? If cryptocurrencies are going to be reported to the government, there is nowhere to go but gold and silver. Nowhere, when you want to be outside the system. And I think that's one of the very comfortable things that I hold in the back of my mind about gold and silver in a world of decreasing privacy and increased craziness. Having something, no one knows that I got these coins right here. You do now, but no one else does. And I think there's a lot underneath the surface, a lot of reasons to own gold and silver right now because of this feeling, this environment where the government thinks it's okay to monitor everything we do and are trying to close the door. They're hiring like 40,000 new auditors of the IRS to go look for tax cheats. And the door and the windows are closing to find any semblance of legal privacy. And that's one thing that we should talk about more often, that this is. It's been wealth for 6,000 years. But if I go dig a big hole in my backyard, I'm the only one, me and God, who know where that is. And so something to think about when we talk about benefits maybe on the periphery related to precious metals in a world of privacy that's fleeting. And this is something to think about also.
Right. Somebody was asking it in the chat, hey, is Cliff High censoring us? No, it's not the issue. It's always a question of timing, and Cliff often gives us some little heads up, but says, please don't talk about this. It may affect the outcome to the detriment of humanity. So, of course, he's been in that position before, playing with this.
I only mentioned Cliff's name because the more I follow him, the more I am impressed with his intellect. And it's frightening how some of the things he says and the way that they come to fruition. And so I use him kind of as a gauge to my own feelings, and so it's a compliment, certainly.
Well, very good. And if you guys want to gauge on the Silver Woo. Check us out tomorrow. This is going to be one hell of a blockbuster episode here with Cliff High and David Morgan. So this is where the Silver Guru meets the Silver Woo. So this episode will be recorded, pre-recorded here for our Insider Access Pass members. Don't get your panties in a knot. I will make this episode free for everyone after, but I will be giving it first for first viewing, of course, to our Insider Access Pass members. And if you guys want to check that out and support us there, right now we do have a coupon code that is valid. It is the Stay Connected coupon code, and that'll give you 10% off the annual Insider Access Pass, which of course gives you access and priority access to all of our uncensored content. Now,
hey, hold on
a second. Cliff and I were talking about this interview for tomorrow, and depending on how it goes and how the language is, of course, because of all the censorship, Bix Weir just got a second strike here today on his channel for a video he did in 2018 on silver manipulation. And so tomorrow after the show, we'll make a determination as to where this episode will eventually land, either on the uncensored platform or perhaps some other platform, but maybe not on YouTube yet. So just bear with me until we decide where to put that. Of course, you can see that on the Insider Access Pass if you want to watch it with us live tomorrow. Okay, Andy, sorry, back to you.
Well, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So I just wanted to make a mention to Carly Simon out there. Hey, Carly. Carly says, God in the metal detector will know where it is. Okay, good point. However, if you bury gold and silver in a PVC pipe with a rubber top 2 feet down vertically, not horizontally, there's not a metal detector on the planet that'll find it. So keep that in mind. You bury it at least 2 feet down vertically, not horizontally, and it will not be found. But nonetheless, I just say that tongue in cheek. I just say that it provides you privacy when no one else knows about it. When you buy gold and silver, the only loss in privacy is writing out a check, and then you take possession of it, and you know what? I'm growing senile. I don't remember where I put it. Sorry. So it's just one of these deals where I think it's important to acknowledge some of the peripheral benefits of owning precious metals that people may not think about.
You know that phrase that all those nasty swamp people always say when they get to court? Oh, sorry, I don't recall.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I just don't recall where I put that silver that Andy gave me a year ago.
You always know the full crap too. But look, in a world where we have to feel I don't know, you have to feel like you're a criminal going to the bank to withdraw $5,000, and the bank says, what do you plan on doing with this money? When you just want to have some privacy and do what is legal, and yet you feel like you're doing something wrong, I think this is kind of what I'm getting at about this feeling in the air. People feel that things are the noose is tightening. And I don't think you have to be a gold bull to feel that. But I will tell you that the desire to own gold and silver is expanding greatly into the mainstream. And this is a kind of a defining characteristic of the last 18 months, where a lot of the people who are buying from us are first-time buyers. They've never owned it before. And a lot of them from your listeners never bought it before, but they are sensing that something's happening and coming. And let's hope we're wrong, but it's pretty hard to think otherwise when you see, kind of like in chess parlance, you see all the pieces moving into position to call checkmate. And I think we've never been closer to that position. And you know what? I don't speak this way. I never have, ever. Go back and look at all the interviews I've done. I've never talked this way. I don't believe in fear-mongering. I don't believe in scaring people. To me, gold and silver are wealth. For the first time in my adult life, I'm frightened for the world my children are growing up in. I'm frightened for the world I live in, because it's not the world I remember as a younger man. And I think that when I talk to the older folks, they really sense that, and they really say it. And they say, a lot of them say, I'm glad I won't be here to see this. And it's sad, but it's true. And this is why I think it's never been more important to protect yourself. I would like to say one other thing. The average asset allocation to metals across the entire financial matrix is less than 0.5%. What happens when things get nuts and that turns into 5 or 10% or 20%? That's 20% is a 40-fold increase. There's nothing left over. So when we talk about difficulty getting product, you ain't seen nothing yet if things get scary. Or you see that OPEC moment where they now accept oil and other currencies, overnight you'll see what it is, what a gold rush is really like. And they say there is no bull market like a gold bull market because it speaks to your fear. No one sells in that market to go back into fiat. No. It just becomes unobtainium.
Exactly. And Bailey says, hey, I just bought the Insider Access Pass. I love it, JC. Thank you, Anne, for supporting us. I really appreciate that. And Emily Bigelow says, yes, I just bought from David at Myers Franklin, and she highly recommends you guys. Somebody in the chat was asking Andy if you have a seniors discount. And I understand we already have very, very tight margins on these low premiums you're offering the audience here. So let's talk about some of these specials here we have for the audience this week.
Yeah. Okay, there's 3 there, and I want to really talk about the third one at the end and explain it. So the first is just your vanilla, a 2021 Austrian Vienna Philharmonic at $365 over. That should be as good of a price as just about anywhere in the United States. Prices change by a lot of companies quickly, but I would think that will be as good or better than anything in the country or real close to it. The next 2 I know should be the very best price in America. The third one especially, I don't think anyone within $5 of it. So let's talk about it. The Type 2 Silver Eagle, I believe, will be one of the lowest mintages of all Silver Eagles ever made. And they didn't come out until July. And at $7.25 over, I'm as much as $2, $3, $4 cheaper than all the online companies. And I feel really good about offering them at $7.25, and I have almost 90,000 of those in stock. I mean, because as a U.S. Mint representative or authorized reseller, I bought a lot of them when they came out, but we haven't sold a lot because the premiums were so high. So at $7.25, I'm cheaper than 99.9% of the companies in America. If you want Type 2 brand new 2021 Silver Eagles, but that third one, the San Francisco Mint box, I have maybe 50 boxes left. That is as rare as hen's teeth. And for your people out there, I don't even think you'll find anyone who has them. But if you look at a lot of the online companies, look at the 2020 San Francisco Mint. Same thing, they made just a very, very few of them. The silver coin, the U.S. Mint is located in West Point, New York. And the San Francisco Mint is hardly used at all. But they did make some this year in San Francisco, a very, very, very small amount. I'm selling those boxes at the same $7.25 over. You go look at what the other companies are selling the 2020 San Francisco Mint, they're $40+ a coin everywhere you look. And the thing is this, with these coins, there's no mint mark on them. If you like this old gold coin right here.
Let me bring you up here so you can show it to the audience closer.
Okay, that coin right there is a 1924 Philadelphia. If it were a San Francisco on the back right there, if it were underneath the eagle, there would be an S mint mark. On these Morgan dollars, every one of them where they're minted, on the back of it will be an S for San Francisco, a CC for Carson City, a D for Denver, an O for New Orleans. But with these 2021 and with the 2020s, the Silver Eagles, they put no mint mark on them. That crisscross strap that you see on the box there is the only identifying marking plus a sticker, a serial number on the side of the box. That serial number denotes where they were made, and that strap will say San Francisco Mint. That is the very best deal that I have seen in a long time. If you want to buy something that has collector potential, it's those. Find anyone that can sell that to you for under $3 or $3 above what I'm selling. Anything under that, I'd eat my hat. I could be selling those for $12, $13 over spot and beat everyone in the country. I'm offering to your listeners for $7.25 over, but do not open the box. Once you cut that strap, it's lost its extra value. It will be just like the second one there, the regular West Point Type 2 Silver Eagles. The only way that people would ever know that this is San Francisco Mint is the strap. The sticker also signifies it, but you could cut the strap, pull the coins out, put the other ones back in and leave the sticker on there, and no one would ever know. except for the fact that it's been opened and it's no longer valid. So the bottom line is, if anyone buys the San Francisco Type 2 box, do not open it. And I think it could be a very, very, very good investment because it's very rare. And just go and do a little price checking online and you'll see exactly what I mean.
Yeah, because a few people were asking me the other day, what are these Type 2s? And I didn't know. I don't particularly follow the US mints. I follow the Canadian mint stuff. And when I checked, I was like, whoa, this is very, very cheap compared to everything else I'm seeing online. And I was trying to question why it was so cheap. So thank you, Andy, for that.
Yeah, I mean, I could be a lot higher, JC. I really could.
Yeah.
I'd rather do the volume. I'd rather be known as someone who's fair and help your clients. The Type 2 Silver Eagle it refers to the design. That eagle in the middle on the second picture is a new design. Lady Liberty on the front is the same, but the eagle is different than the silver eagle that's been minted since 1986. The same with the gold eagle. They did both the silver and the gold eagle came out this July as a Type 2, a new design. That's what it refers to.
Wow. Awesome. All righty. Well, that's it for the show. We're already at the 6 hour or 6 o'clock mark almost. Andy, is there anything else you want to share with the audience here? Maybe an update? I know when we last spoke, you were trying to figure out the banking situation and you had some paperwork to sign in order to open up and be able to take Canadian dollar payments for silver here for our Canadian customers. What's the update on that? What can
we're getting closer. You know, there are a lot of things that go into this without getting too deep into it. One is something called Nexus, and Nexus means where, because I own a company in the United States, and if I do this in Canada, it could open up dual taxation. And so we've been taking this step by step the proper way so that we do this the right way. It's going to happen, I don't know, a few weeks, a month. I'm not sure. We're stockpiling all the names. Whoever sent emails from Canada, we will reply back. We're close. We just want to make sure we do it the right way.
Okay.
I would say by Halloween at the outset, the very latest. And for those of you in Canada, that's October 31st, the end of October. I'm hoping it's long before that, JC, but it's a big deal and I want to do it the right way. And so I'm hoping that it's, within the next couple of weeks, but just say if it could be.
And just to reiterate for people who might not have seen our first show on this, it's still possible for Canadians to buy from you directly if they want to pay in US dollars. So they can still do that. They are going to pay the difference there in the exchange rate. But they can also, if they want to save, they can pay you in Bitcoin. Now, so for some of our customers who don't have Bitcoin, of course, it's very easy to convert your Bitcoin or to your Litecoin or whatever you have into Bitcoin and to.
You know what, JC? I just found out last night we take Litecoin too, and it's funny.
You're using BitPay. Okay.
Yeah, and it's funny because the guy said to me, "I just transferred you Litecoin." I'm like, "What? We don't take Litecoin." He says, "But it said I could." So I talked to my operations, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we can do that." Well, nice that they told me. That's the first I heard of it. So
all right.
Whatever you seem to know what he said. BitPay, he said to me, there are a bunch of cryptocurrencies you can use. So whatever on BitPay, whatever cryptocurrency they allow, we will take. So maybe you could elaborate. I don't know, but I know Litecoin is one of them.
Okay, well, very good. So folks, just to confirm that, talk to Andy's brokers or Andy himself when you get to that ordering process to make sure that your crypto is accepted. If not, again, it's quite easy for you guys who are already into crypto to swap it for whatever is available on Andy's BitPay app there. So, okay. Well, folks, thank you very much for joining us here tonight. Please do remember to like, share, and subscribe. And join us tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern for the Wacky Woo with Jason at 4. We are going to be talking about a lot of spiritual stuff, some crypto, of course, and all the weird shit going on in the world right now. So that's going to be at 8 o'clock Eastern. It's going to be a fabulous show. Please join us for that. Tomorrow morning, I'm recording the uncensored version of the monthly report with Dr. Jim Willie. So that is also available on the Insider Access Pass members. And we're going to do a short YouTube-friendly version because it's hard to rein in Jim Willie sometimes, but we'll do that on Sunday as well, and that's going to be at 10 a.m. So join us for that. It's going to be a chock-full weekend of financial review and woo put together. So again, if you guys want to see this episode, please become a member of our Insider Access Pass. You'll have first priority access to this, and within a day or two, Cliff, David, and I will decide, depending on the language that was used during our interview, where we are going to put the video so that it's safe for you guys and not put any of us in our YouTube channels in trouble. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. This was the weekly Precious Metals Weekend Review with Andy SCHECTMAN. Thank you so much, Andy. Have a great weekend, sir.
Have a great weekend, brother. Talk to you next week.